My friends, today we're diving into one of Florence Scovel Shinn's most powerful yet overlooked teachings, a sentence so charged with creative energy that it can literally reprogram your relationship with money. This isn't about positive thinking or mere wishful affirmations. This is about accessing a fundamental law of creation that most people will never understand. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly, while others struggle despite working twice as hard? What if I told you that the difference between financial struggle and abundance could be just one sentence away? A single sentence that, when spoken from the right state of mind, holds the power to completely transform your financial reality overnight. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You've diligently repeated affirmations, visualized prosperity, maybe even created vision boards, yet your bank account remains stubbornly unchanged? There's a profound reason for this, and Florence Scovel Shinn understood it nearly a century ago. She knew that words spoken without genuine feeling are just empty vessels, powerless to create change in your life. You see, words aren't merely sounds vibrating through the air. They are acts of creation that carry the entire weight of the state from which you speak them. When you declare, "I am prosperous," while feeling broke inside, your subconscious receives mixed signals. The universe doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to who you are being when you say it. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely revolutionize how you approach manifestation. I'm going to share with you not just this extraordinary sentence, but precisely how to speak it from the state that gives it unstoppable creative power. The secret lies in something Scovel Shinn called speaking from the end, addressing the universe not as someone hoping for wealth, but as someone who has already crossed that threshold. This subtle yet profound shift changes everything. When you truly grasp this principle, you'll understand why most people's affirmations fall flat, while others speak a single sentence and watch their reality transform before their eyes. What fascinates me most about Florence Scovel Shinn's approach is how she understood the relationship between our inner conversations and our outer circumstances. Every word you speak carries a vibration, an energetic imprint that your subconscious mind accepts without question. But here's where most people miss the mark. If you found value in these prosperity principles, subscribe to join our Conscious Creator community. We explore Florence Scovel Shinn's hidden teachings that most people never discover, the ones that create real transformation rather than temporary inspiration. Most people make a critical mistake when attempting to manifest wealth. They approach the universe as beggars, constantly asking, hoping, and pleading for financial abundance. They repeat affirmations like desperate prayers, wondering why nothing changes. But here's the hidden truth that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered through her profound work with thousands of students. The universal law doesn't respond to begging, it responds only to being. This revelation transforms the entire foundation of manifestation. When you stand before the mirror reciting, "I am wealthy," while your inner dialogue whispers, "But I'm not," you've created an unbridgeable gap between your words and your identity. The universe doesn't hear your verbal affirmations. It feels the vibration of who you believe yourself to be. The journey to abundance requires a complete mindset revolution. Instead of approaching wealth as something external to acquire, you must undergo the internal transformation of becoming someone who is already wealthy in consciousness before a single dollar appears in your account. This is what makes Florence Scovel Shinn's approach so radically different from conventional manifestation techniques. She understood something that modern quantum physics is only beginning to verify. Imagination coupled with aligned speech isn't merely a psychological exercise, but a direct bridge to a new reality. When you speak from the consciousness of already having received what you desire, you're not performing a ritual. You're engaging with the very fabric of creation. This methodical approach produces impacts that often appear magical to those who don't understand the principle. People witness money appearing from unexpected sources, opportunities materializing seemingly from nowhere, and financial burdens dissolving without logical explanation. Yet there's nothing supernatural occurring. It's simply the universe responding to a shift in your state of being. Consider the difference between these two approaches. Universe, please send me money because I really need it, versus I am wealth itself, and abundance flows to me naturally. The first comes from lack, the second from fullness. The first creates more wanting, the second creates more having. Behind the scenes of every financial miracle is this fundamental shift from identifying as someone seeking wealth to someone who embodies wealth as their natural state. Your subconscious mind, that powerful creative force within you, doesn't respond to hopeful aspirations. It responds to decisions about who you are. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring exactly how Florence Scovel Shinn taught her students to make this crucial identity shift. Because the revelations I'm about to share completely eliminated the gap between wanting prosperity and experiencing it in their lives. The most fascinating aspect is how this approach bypasses the logical mind entirely. While your conscious thoughts might still doubt, your subconscious, which controls 95% of your reality, begins rearranging circumstances to match your new chosen identity. This is why results often appear in ways you couldn't have consciously engineered. If what I'm sharing resonates with something you've intuitively known, but perhaps couldn't articulate, write "identity shift" in the comments below. The question becomes, are you truly ready to make this profound shift? Many seekers of abundance encounter a critical crossroads on their manifestation journey. They intellectually understand the principles, but hesitate at the threshold of true transformation. Florence Scovel Shinn observed this pattern repeatedly with her clients. The blueprint for wealth was clear to them, yet something held them back from fully embodying their financial vision. This readiness I'm describing isn't about external preparation. It's an internal alignment that changes everything. It's the decision to stop asking for money as if it were something separate from you, and instead speaking with the quiet confidence of someone who already embodies wealth itself. This subtle yet powerful distinction separates those who perpetually chase prosperity from those who naturally attract it. The catalyst for this shift often emerges from unexpected revelations about ourselves. When you examine your relationship with money closely, you'll likely discover hidden narratives running beneath your conscious awareness. Stories about worthiness, abundance, and what's possible for someone like you. These subconscious blueprints were typically installed during childhood, yet they continue orchestrating your financial reality decades later. Before you can effectively speak from the end result, there's a crucial clearing process that must occur. Just as you would prepare soil before planting valuable seeds, your consciousness requires similar preparation. This means deliberately releasing all worries, doubts, and those persistent questions about how and when wealth will manifest in your experience. These mental obstacles create static in your manifestation frequency. When you're constantly wondering, how will the money come? Or, when will I finally experience abundance? You're inadvertently broadcasting doubt rather than certainty. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this psychological mechanism long before modern neuroscience confirmed how uncertainty inhibits our creative potential. The elegance of this approach lies in its simplicity. By clearing these mental pathways, you create space for new beliefs to take root. This emptying process isn't about forced positive thinking. It's about honest recognition that worrying about the how has never served your manifestation journey. The universe responds not to your questions, but to your decisions about what's possible. This is just one of Florence Scovel Shinn's powerful methods for manifesting abundance. To discover her complete system for creating wealth consciousness, subscribe now. Our teachings build upon each other to create a complete prosperity blueprint you won't find anywhere else. I've witnessed remarkable breakthroughs when people finally release their death grip on figuring everything out. A client once shared how, after years of financial struggle, she stopped obsessing over how money would come, and instead simply decided it was already done in consciousness. Within days, an unexpected inheritance appeared. Money that had been tied up in legal proceedings for years suddenly cleared. The mindset mastery required here involves surrendering your need to control the process. When you release attachment to specific pathways and timelines, you open yourself to receiving through infinite channels. Some of the most extraordinary wealth manifestations arrive through avenues we could never have consciously engineered. This mental clearing creates a sanctuary of certainty within you, a quiet knowing that transcends external circumstances. From this sanctuary, you'll speak words of power that reshape your financial reality from the inside out. If you recognize that you've been holding on to doubts that are blocking your abundance, type "releasing control" in the comments below. What many don't realize is that Florence Scovel Shinn carefully guarded some of her most powerful manifestation techniques. Though her books contain invaluable wisdom, the most transformative methods were often reserved for her private clients, those who demonstrated genuine readiness to receive them. These weren't arbitrary restrictions, but a profound understanding of spiritual development. She recognized that revelations delivered prematurely often fail to take root in consciousness. This methodical approach reflects her insight into human psychology. True transformation occurs not through information dumps, but through calibrated experiences that build upon each other. Each realization becomes a foundation for the next, creating an unshakable structure of belief that eventually manifests as tangible results. While many spiritual teachers of her era offered dramatic promises, Scovel Shinn's genius lay in her step-by-step pathway that turned metaphysical concepts into living realities. Behind the scenes of her practice, she would observe her students carefully, waiting for that pivotal moment when intellectual understanding transformed into embodied wisdom. Only then would she reveal the next level of practice. This patient cultivation produced extraordinary results. Business executives, artists, and homemakers alike experienced financial breakthroughs that seemed miraculous to outside observers, but were simply the natural outcome of her systematic approach. Now, I want to go even deeper into what Florence Scovel Shinn understood about the creative power of speech. She recognized something that quantum physics now confirms. Your spoken word is not merely communication. It is a creative force that shapes reality. When you declare something with feeling, you're not just expressing an idea. You're sending powerful vibrations into the universe that begin arranging circumstances to match your declaration. Every time you speak, you're essentially broadcasting your identity to both your subconscious mind and the world around you. This broadcast doesn't just describe who you are, it actively creates who you become. The universe doesn't distinguish between what you're describing and what you're creating. It simply reflects back the predominant energy of your declarations. Consider the subtle yet crucial difference between saying, "I hope to be financially secure someday," versus "I am wealth in expression." The first statement creates more hoping. The second creates more being. One positions you as separate from your desire. The other collapses that separation entirely. This distinction isn't semantic wordplay. It represents fundamentally different relationships with abundance. The journey to mastering this creative speech involves a complete paradigm shift. Most people use words to describe their current circumstances, unwittingly reinforcing those very conditions. The masterful manifester uses words to establish new patterns in consciousness, speaking from the vantage point of desires already fulfilled. This isn't delusional thinking, but rather a sophisticated engagement with how reality actually constructs itself. What fascinates me most about Scovel Shinn's approach is how she bridged practical psychology with spiritual principles. She understood that what we now call neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, could be deliberately harnessed through conscious speech patterns. By consistently speaking as the person who already embodies wealth, you literally reshape your neural pathways until that identity becomes your default setting. If you're beginning to recognize how your everyday speech might be reinforcing limitation rather than abundance, type conscious creator in the comments below. What's truly eye-opening about Florence Scovel Shinn's teaching is her emphasis on the power of casual, everyday speech. Most people obsess over their formal affirmations while remaining completely unaware of how their ordinary conversations are programming their financial reality. Those seemingly innocent remarks about being broke, casual complaints about bills, or flippant comments about not being able to afford something aren't just observations. They're powerful commands being delivered directly to your subconscious mind. This revelation transforms how you navigate daily conversations. That moment when you joke with friends about being poor until payday, or sigh about the economy, these aren't harmless social exchanges. They're precision instructions to your subconscious, which accepts them without discrimination or critical analysis. The blueprint for manifestation doesn't distinguish between what you consciously desire and what you carelessly declare. The subconscious operates like a sophisticated recording device, capturing every declaration you make, especially those charged with emotional intensity. When you express frustration about money with genuine feeling, that emotional charge acts as an amplifier, making the impression far more powerful. Your subconscious doesn't evaluate whether these impressions serve your highest good. It simply accepts them as commands to be fulfilled. This psychological mechanism explains why many people remain trapped in financial cycles despite their best efforts. They might spend 20 minutes each morning reciting prosperity affirmations, then spend the rest of the day unconsciously reinforcing scarcity through casual speech. This mixed messaging creates internal conflict that prevents clear manifestation. The pivotal insight here is that your subconscious mind is perpetually listening, not just during meditation or visualization exercises, but during every moment of your waking life. It registers the frustration in your voice when discussing prices, the worry in your tone when planning purchases, and the resignation in your sighs when paying bills. Each of these emotional signatures becomes part of your manifestation blueprint. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the extraordinary faithfulness of your subconscious mind. Once it receives an impression, especially one delivered with emotional intensity, it begins working tirelessly to create corresponding circumstances in your external reality. This isn't a metaphysical theory. It's a psychological reality that explains why our lives so often reflect our predominant thought patterns. The subconscious doesn't operate according to logic or reason. It doesn't dismiss a statement because it contradicts your conscious desires or goals. Instead, it now accepts whatever you impress upon it as absolute truth and begins rearranging your perceptions, decisions, and even your physical circumstances to align with that truth. This is why mastering your casual speech represents one of the most profound transformations on the path to abundance. What's particularly fascinating is the democratic nature of this process. Your subconscious doesn't prioritize formal affirmations over casual remarks. In fact, spontaneous statements often carry greater emotional charge and therefore make deeper impressions. Your financial blueprint is being written continuously through these everyday declarations, creating patterns that eventually solidify into what you call your financial reality. The journey toward wealth consciousness requires becoming a guardian of your speech, monitoring not just planned affirmations, but the unconscious commentary that flows throughout your day. This vigilance isn't about perfection, but awareness. If you're committed to becoming more conscious of the everyday words you use about money, type mindful speaker in the comments below. What fascinates me about Florence Scovel Shinn's approach to manifestation is how she identified the trap that most abundance seekers unknowingly set for themselves. When you habitually speak of being broke, when you constantly verbalize your inability to afford things, you aren't merely describing your current circumstances. You're actively casting a limiting spell over your entire financial reality. These declarations become self-fulfilling prophecies, creating an energetic boundary around what's possible for you. Consider what happens internally when you say, I can't afford that. Beyond the literal meaning, you're programming your mind with a specific identity, someone who lacks resources. This identity then drives your perceptions, decisions, and actions in ways that reinforce itself. You begin noticing more evidence of limitation, making choices from scarcity, and ultimately experiencing the very lack you've declared. The breakthrough comes with Scovel Shinn's revelation that to attract wealth, you must absolutely refuse to speak as someone who is poor. This isn't about denial or magical thinking. It's about choosing which version of yourself you're energetically embodying through speech. When you decide to speak only as the wealthy version of yourself, even before external evidence supports this identity, you initiate a profound transformation at the subconscious level. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what actually gives words their manifestation power. The hidden truth that revolutionizes manifestation practice is this: the magic isn't in the words themselves, it's in the state of consciousness from which you speak them. Two people can repeat identical phrases with dramatically different results because they're broadcasting from entirely different states of being. This explains why mechanical repetition of affirmations often fails to produce results. The words are empty vessels until they're filled with the energy of your authentic state. When you speak from lack while attempting to affirm abundance, you create an internal conflict that neutralizes your manifestation. But when you speak from the end result, where your desire is already fulfilled in consciousness, those same words become charged with creative power. The journey of mindset mastery involves learning to shift your state before speaking. Rather than trying to use words to change your state, you change your state first, then allow words to flow naturally from that elevated consciousness. This sequence completely transforms the impact of everything you say about money. Behind the scenes of successful manifestation is this precise choreography, first embodying the feeling of the wish fulfilled, then allowing speech to emerge from that embodied state. The words themselves become secondary to the consciousness they're carrying. This is why Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized feeling over formula, being over technique. What's particularly liberating about this approach is how it frees you from needing specific scripts or affirmations. When you're genuinely speaking from the state of fulfillment, even casual remarks about money carry the vibration of abundance. Your entire financial vocabulary transforms not through forced positive thinking, but through authentic identification with wealth consciousness. This principle creates a paradigm shift in how we approach manifestation practice. Instead of focusing primarily on what to say, we learn to cultivate the inner state from which we speak. If you've experienced moments where you could feel yourself speaking from an entirely different state of consciousness, type state shift in the comments below. This profound principle forms the cornerstone of Florence Scovel Shinn's manifestation philosophy. You literally become what you consistently occupy in imagination. This isn't metaphorical advice, but a precise description of how reality constructs itself around your dominant mental patterns. When you persistently imagine yourself as wealthy, that state of consciousness eventually materializes in your external experience, because imagination isn't separate from reality. It's the blueprint from which reality is built. What distinguishes Scovel Shinn's approach from modern visualization techniques is her understanding of the complete circuit of creation. It's not enough to occasionally visualize abundance. You must learn to occupy wealth consciousness so completely that it becomes your default perspective, the lens through which you interpret everything. When you speak from this deeply imagined state, the external world has no choice but to conform to the authority of your voice. The architecture of manifestation follows this precise sequence: first imagination, then embodiment, then speech, and finally physical manifestation. Most people attempt to reverse this order, hoping external circumstances will change first, allowing them to feel differently, which would then alter their imagination and speech. This inverted approach explains why so many remain trapped in cycles of financial limitation despite sincere efforts to change. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the profound declaration your voice makes to the invisible world. every time you speak, whether in formal affirmations or casual conversation. You're making a definitive announcement to the unseen forces of creation about your identity. This isn't poetic language, but a practical description of energetic transmission that modern quantum physics is only beginning to validate scientifically. Your voice carries vibrations that extend far beyond audible sound. It broadcasts the essence of who you believe yourself to be at the deepest level. The universe doesn't respond to your desires or wishes, it responds to your declarations of identity. When you speak, you're not merely communicating with others. You're programming the field of infinite possibility that surrounds you. The revelation that transforms manifestation practice is understanding that every phrase becomes a declaration, and every word plants seeds in the fertile soil of your subconscious. These seeds don't remain dormant. They germinate, take root, and eventually bear fruit as your lived experience. This explains why people with identical external circumstances often create radically different futures. They're planting entirely different seeds through their habitual speech patterns. Behind the scenes of successful wealth creation is this fundamental shift in self-concept that gets expressed through aligned speech. The journey of transformation begins when you recognize that your financial reality isn't happening to you. It's speaking through you. Your current circumstances are simply the harvest of seeds planted through previous declarations, both conscious and unconscious. What I find particularly liberating about Scovel Shinn's teaching is how it returns sovereignty to the individual. You're not at the mercy of economic conditions, family history, or past mistakes. At any moment, you can begin speaking from a new state of consciousness that will inevitably reshape your external reality. This isn't wishful thinking, but a disciplined practice of aligning your imagination, identity, and speech. If you've ever noticed how your spoken words seem to manifest in your experience, either positively or negatively, type word power in the comments below. What many fail to realize about manifestation is the extraordinary partnership they have with their own subconscious mind. This isn't merely a passive repository of memories and conditioning. It's an active, tireless collaborator in creating your reality. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this partnership long before modern neuroscience confirmed it. Your subconscious mind functions as a sophisticated orchestrator, constantly arranging people, circumstances, opportunities, and even coincidences to align with the commands it receives from your conscious declarations. This hidden architect of your experience doesn't sleep, doesn't take vacations, and never stops working on your behalf. The revelation that transforms financial breakthroughs is recognizing that this powerful force isn't making independent decisions about your prosperity. It's faithfully executing the blueprint you provide through your dominant thoughts and especially your spoken words. Consider the implications of this dynamic partnership. When you consistently speak about financial struggle, your subconscious diligently creates corresponding experiences, missed opportunities, unexpected expenses, problematic clients. Not because it wishes hardship upon you, but because it's programmed to manifest whatever reality you've declared as yours. It operates with unwavering loyalty to your dominant beliefs, regardless of whether those beliefs serve your highest good. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when you make the pivotal shift to speaking genuinely from a state of wealth. When you speak not as someone hoping for abundance, but as someone already embodying it, feeling it viscerally, knowing it unquestionably, a remarkable transformation occurs at the subconscious level. Your subconscious mind, which cannot distinguish between vivid imagination and actual experience, accepts this new identity as absolute truth. It doesn't debate, question, or resist. It simply updates its operating instructions and begins rearranging your entire reality to conform with this new self-concept. This acceptance isn't gradual or partial. It's complete and immediate at the subconscious level, though external manifestations may follow their own timeline. What's particularly fascinating about this psychological mechanism is how it creates a bridge between your internal state and external Circumstances. Once your subconscious accepts your wealthy identity as truth, it begins influencing your perceptions, highlighting opportunities you previously overlooked, guiding your decisions toward prosperity, and even affecting how others respond to you in financial contexts. The journey of manifestation mastery involves learning to maintain this authentic state of wealth consciousness regardless of temporary external conditions. This inner alignment creates the magnetic field that inevitably attracts corresponding outer experiences. The spiritual alchemy occurs not when you convince your conscious mind of new possibilities, but when your subconscious mind fully embraces your new identity. Behind the scenes of every overnight success is this precise process. Someone who learned to speak consistently from wealth consciousness until their subconscious mind accepted it as the only truth. Their external circumstances simply caught up with what had already been established. Internally. If you've experienced moments where you felt your subconscious mind working in harmony with your conscious intentions, type inner partnership in the comments below. One of the most profound insights Florence Scovel Shinn shared with her closest students was the critical importance of monitoring inner conversations. These silent dialogues you have with yourself throughout the day might seem inconsequential. After all, no one else can hear them. Yet Scovel Shinn insisted that these private conversations are perhaps the most powerful creative force in your financial universe. What you whisper to yourself while driving, showering, or falling asleep forms the energetic template that eventually manifests as your visible circumstances. These internal dialogues operate at a frequency that bypasses the critical faculty of your conscious mind. When you silently repeat thoughts like, "Money is always tight for me," or "I'll never get ahead financially," these statements slip directly into the subconscious without the filtering that might occur with spoken words. The intimacy of these private conversations gives them extraordinary manifestation power. They're accepted as absolute truth precisely because they're coming from what feels like your deepest self. The revelation that transforms prosperity consciousness is recognizing that these inner conversations aren't merely reflections of reality, they're the architects of it. Every financial circumstance you currently experience was first conceived in the realm of inner dialogue, then gradually solidified into physical form. Your bank account balance, investment portfolio, debt situation, and income level are all physical echoes of conversations you've been having with yourself, often for decades. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the liberating truth that if words created your current reality, then new words spoken from an elevated state of consciousness can create an entirely new reality. And this transition can happen with remarkable speed. This understanding completely dismantles the belief that financial transformation must be gradual or that past patterns predict future outcomes. The catalyst for breakthrough is realizing that your financial blueprint isn't carved in stone. It's written in the fluid medium of consciousness, which can be revised at any moment. If limiting words constructed your current circumstances, then empowering words spoken with authentic feeling can reconstruct them entirely. This isn't wishful thinking, but a precise application of the same creative principle that brought you to this point. What's particularly revolutionary about Scovel Shinn's approach is her recognition that this shift doesn't require months or years of reprogramming. The moment you genuinely speak from a new state of consciousness, not hoping for change, but embodying it, the entire trajectory of your manifestation begins to alter. The past loses its predictive power, and new possibilities emerge that were previously invisible to you. Consider the journey of consciousness as similar to redirecting a mighty river. For years, perhaps decades, your words have been carving a particular channel of financial experience. The moment you begin consistently speaking from wealth consciousness, you're not just placing small stones in that river, you're fundamentally redirecting its flow. The initial change happens at the causal level of consciousness, with physical circumstances inevitably following that energetic shift. The framework for transformation involves becoming intensely aware of both your spoken and unspoken words about money. This awareness isn't about self-judgment, but self-observation. noticing with compassion the patterns that have been running on autopilot, then consciously choosing new patterns that align with your desired experience. If you're beginning to recognize how your inner conversations might be writing the script of your financial reality, type inner author in the comments below. What's truly remarkable about Florence Scovel Shinn's approach is her understanding that transformation doesn't require lengthy reprogramming or thousands of repetitions. A single sentence, when genuinely felt as real at the deepest level, holds the power to completely restructure your entire life pattern. This revelation challenges everything we've been taught about how change occurs. Most assume that shifting long-standing financial patterns requires months or years of consistent effort, but Scovel Shinn discovered something far more immediate and profound. When you speak a sentence from the genuine feeling of it being already true, not hoping, not affirming, but knowing, something extraordinary happens in the field of consciousness. This isn't about the force of repetition or the discipline of practice. It's about the authenticity of embodiment. Your subconscious mind, which creates your reality, responds not to mechanical repetitions, but to the resonance of truth it hears in your voice. It recognizes when you've genuinely shifted states and immediately begins reconfiguring your reality accordingly. Consider the watershed moment when someone deeply realizes, "I am wealth itself," not as a concept, but as their essential nature. That singular moment of recognition, when felt completely, initiates a cascade of changes at the quantum level of creation. New possibilities emerge, unseen doors open, and what seemed impossible yesterday suddenly appears as the natural unfolding of your new identity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining why most people experience frustration with traditional affirmations. The hidden catalyst for breakthrough comes in understanding that affirmations fail not because they lack power, but because they're spoken from the wrong state of consciousness. When you mechanically repeat, "I am wealthy," while inwardly feeling poor, hopeful, or doubtful, you're creating an energetic contradiction that neutralizes the creative potential of those words. The subconscious mind isn't fooled by verbal gymnastics. It responds exclusively to the feeling tone behind your words. This explains why someone can faithfully repeat prosperity affirmations for years without seeing tangible results. Their words are sailing in one direction, while their feeling state is anchored in the opposite direction, creating a manifestation stalemate. The framework for transformation involves recognizing that the subconscious registers emotional signatures, not verbal content. When your affirmations are saturated with hope, you manifest more hoping. When they're tinged with doubt, you create more experiences that justify doubt. Only when they're spoken from the quiet certainty of already being what you declare do they gain the momentum necessary to reshape your financial reality. This revelation completely revolutionizes manifestation practice. Instead of focusing on perfecting the words or increasing repetitions, the masterful creator learns to shift their state first, then allow words to emerge naturally from that elevated consciousness. The breakthrough occurs not through persuading yourself of new possibilities, but through authentically embodying them prior to verbal declaration. Behind the scenes of every genuine transformation is this precise sequence. First, the shift in feeling state, then the aligned verbal declaration that carries the authority of that state. This explains why sometimes a casual, spontaneous statement carries more manifestation power than hundreds of deliberate affirmations. The difference lies not in the words themselves, but in the consciousness from which they originate. If you've noticed how traditional affirmations sometimes feel empty or disconnected from your reality, type authentic alignment in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something profound about the mechanics of manifestation that most spiritual teachers either missed entirely or failed to articulate clearly. The subconscious mind, that powerful creative force within you, responds exclusively to the feeling of being, not to words in isolation. This revelation completely transforms how we approach prosperity work. When you declare, "I am wealthy," while secretly harboring feelings of poverty, Your subconscious detects this contradiction immediately. It isn't processing your verbal declarations, it's registering your energetic signature, your authentic feeling state. This explains why so many sincere seekers experience frustration on their manifestation journey. They meticulously craft the perfect affirmations, repeat them faithfully each morning and evening, yet see minimal results. The missing element isn't in the words themselves, but in the consciousness from which those words emerge. Your subconscious operates like a sophisticated tuning fork, resonating not with what you say, but with who you are being when you say it. The blueprint for transformation involves recognizing that your subconscious doesn't register intellectual concepts. It only recognizes experiential truth. When you speak from a feeling of lack while attempting to affirm abundance, you're sending contradictory instructions to the creative center of your being. The subconscious, unable to reconcile these opposing signals, defaults to maintaining your existing financial patterns rather than creating new ones. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring one of Florence Scovel Shinn's most revolutionary insights, that a single sentence spoken from the proper state of consciousness carries more creative power than thousands of repetitions from the wrong state. This completely inverts conventional wisdom about manifestation, which typically emphasizes quantity of practice over quality of alignment. Consider the watershed moment when someone genuinely embodies wealth consciousness, even for a brief interval, and from that authentic state declares, "I am abundant." That single declaration, saturated with the feeling of its truth, carries more manifestation momentum than 10,000 mechanical repetitions spoken from doubt, hope, or desperation. The catalyst for breakthrough isn't found in perfecting your affirmation technique, but in mastering your ability to shift states of consciousness before speaking. The framework for this approach involves quality over quantity, depth over repetition. Rather than rushing to speak words of power, the masterful creator first cultivates the corresponding state through deliberate imagination, emotional rehearsal, and identity work. Once that state is genuinely occupied, even casual statements carry extraordinary creative force because they're infused with the energy of authentic being. This principle explains why some people seem to manifest with remarkable ease, while others struggle despite disciplined practice. The difference isn't in external factors, but in the internal alignment between what they're saying and who they're being. Those who manifest effortlessly have learned, often intuitively, to speak only from states that match their desired outcomes, creating a seamless pathway for manifestation. Behind the scenes of every overnight success story is this precise dynamic. Someone who learned to prioritize state management over word crafting, who recognized that their feeling tone is the true language of creation. When this alignment occurs, even simple declarations carry the force of destiny. If you've noticed that your most powerful manifestations occurred when your words and feelings were in perfect harmony, type "perfect alignment" in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn often used a profound yet simple analogy to explain effective manifestation, the natural way children engage in imaginative play. Have you ever observed a child declaring, "I'm a superhero," or "I'm the queen"? There's no hesitation, no inner conflict, no analytical mind questioning the validity of this identity. They step fully into the role, embodying it completely without the slightest doubt. Their imagination and their identity temporarily merge in a way that adult consciousness typically resists. This childlike embodiment reveals a fundamental truth about consciousness. It naturally accepts whatever identity you fully occupy without resistance. When children play, they aren't pretending in the way adults understand pretending. For that magical duration, they become the character completely. Their voice, posture, decisions, and emotions all align perfectly with this assumed identity. This total alignment is precisely what gives affirmations their manifestation power. The revelation that transforms manifestation practice is recognizing that affirmations were never meant to be mechanical repetitions designed to convince yourself of something you don't believe. Rather, they are acts of becoming, moments of stepping so fully into an Identity that the gap between current reality and desired experience temporarily collapses. This shift in perspective completely redefines how we approach the language of creation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring one of Scovel Shinn's most liberating teachings. She advised her students to stop trying to convince themselves or the world of their prosperity through forced declarations. Instead, she offered a revolutionary shortcut. Simply speak as someone who already possesses everything they desire. This isn't about linguistic tricks or carefully crafted affirmations. It's about authentic embodiment preceding expression. Consider the watershed moment when you stop trying to persuade yourself that you deserve abundance and instead begin speaking naturally as someone who already lives in complete financial freedom. Your tone shifts, your vocabulary transforms, your emotional signature changes, not because you're making an effort, but because you're speaking from a different identity entirely. This pivot in consciousness creates an entirely new trajectory for manifestation. The alchemy of transformation occurs when you recognize that you don't need to build a bridge to wealth consciousness through thousands of affirmations. You can simply step directly into that consciousness through decision and embodiment, then allow your speech to flow naturally from that state. This is the difference between working hard to convince yourself of prosperity and simply being prosperous in your communications with yourself and others. Behind the scenes of this approach is a profound understanding of identity fluidity. Just as you naturally speak differently when you're confident versus when you're insecure, you naturally speak differently when you identify as wealthy versus when you identify as financially limited. The key insight is that this identity shift can happen through conscious choice rather than waiting for external circumstances to validate it. The journey toward mastery involves noticing when you're speaking as someone hoping to become prosperous versus speaking as someone who embodies prosperity already. This awareness becomes the doorway to a completely different relationship with creation. If you've experienced moments where you naturally spoke from abundance rather than striving for it, type natural wealth in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn observed a crucial distinction that many spiritual teachers overlook: the profound difference between empty repetition and truly creative speech. Anyone can mindlessly recite words, much like reading from a script without emotional investment. But creative speech emerges from an entirely different dimension of consciousness. It flows naturally when you speak from a place of fulfilled desire, where what you're declaring feels so real that your entire being aligns with it. This distinction isn't merely academic. It determines whether your words disappear into empty air or become catalysts for tangible transformation. Consider the energetic signature of these two approaches. Empty repetition often carries a subtle vibration of lack, the very feeling you're trying to overcome. You may be saying positive words, but the underlying frequency communicates, "I need this to happen," rather than, "This is already my reality." Creative speech, by contrast, emerges from fullness rather than emptiness. It doesn't strain to make something happen. It simply acknowledges what is already true in consciousness. This revelation completely shifts how we approach manifestation practice. The watershed moment in prosperity consciousness occurs when you recognize that words themselves have no inherent power. They are simply vehicles for the consciousness you occupy when speaking them. This explains why identical phrases produce dramatically different results for different people. One person's declaration creates immediate shifts while another's identical words seem to evaporate, without impact. The difference lies not in the words, but in the state from which they originate. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what may be Florence Scovel Shinn's most profound teaching, the art of living from the end. This revolutionary approach completely inverts conventional manifestation practice. Instead of working gradually toward your desired outcome, you psychologically occupy the endpoint immediately. You inhabit the consciousness of already having what you want, speaking, thinking, and feeling from that fulfilled state rather than from the state of wanting or pursuing it. This mindset mastery transforms the entire manifestation journey from a process of waiting into one of immediate psychological completion. When you truly live from the end, you're no longer asking when your desire will manifest. In your consciousness, it already has. This psychological shift creates a completely different relationship with time. The future you've been seeking collapses into your present experience, becoming the place from which you now live and speak. The hidden catalyst for breakthrough is understanding that your consciousness doesn't follow a linear timeline. It can leap directly to any point of completion through imagination and emotional rehearsal. When you genuinely inhabit the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you create a resonant field that the physical world must eventually match. This isn't magical thinking, but rather a sophisticated engagement with the causal nature of consciousness. Behind the scenes of every remarkable manifestation story is this precise psychological mechanism. Someone who learned to collapse the gap between wanting and having by living completely from the end result. Their external reality simply caught up with what had already been established in consciousness. If you've experienced moments where you stopped waiting for something to happen and instead felt it as already accomplished in your being, type end result in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn observed something fascinating about people who experience sudden wealth, like lottery winners. They don't walk around constantly declaring, "I am rich, I am rich, I am rich." Such affirmations would seem bizarre to them because their identity has already updated to match their new financial reality. They simply live, speak, and make decisions as wealthy individuals naturally, without effort or conscious thought. This observation reveals a profound insight about manifestation. The state we're trying to reach through affirmations is actually one where affirmations become unnecessary. This revelation completely transforms how we approach prosperity consciousness. Instead of using affirmations as tools to eventually reach wealth, we recognize that genuine wealth consciousness feels like natural certainty rather than repeated self-convincing. The person who truly embodies abundance doesn't need constant verbal reinforcement because their identity and financial reality are already aligned. Their decisions, perspectives, and speech patterns naturally reflect this alignment without deliberate effort. The paradox of manifestation becomes clear. You must embody the natural confidence of already having wealth before the physical manifestation appears. This isn't about pretending or performing, but about genuinely shifting your identity at such a fundamental level that speaking as a wealthy person becomes your authentic expression, rather than a practice or technique. The transformation must occur at the level of being before it can materialize in your external experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when you truly speak from a place of fulfillment rather than lack. When your words emerge from the consciousness of already having received what you desire, they undergo a remarkable alchemy. They transform from mere wishes into universal law. This isn't poetic metaphor, but a precise description of how consciousness shapes reality. Words spoken from fulfillment carry an entirely different creative charge than words spoken from emptiness. Consider the energetic distinction between these two states. When you speak from lack, your words, regardless of how positive they sound, carry an undercurrent of need, hope, or uncertainty. This frequency creates more experiences that match that same vibration. More hoping, more wanting, more waiting. But when you speak from genuine fulfillment, your words radiate completion. They don't plead with the universe. They command it with quiet authority because they emerge from the state where creation is already finished. The watershed moment in manifestation practice occurs when you recognize that speaking from lack produces only noise in the creative field, while speaking from fulfillment establishes immediate resonance with what you desire. This subtle shift completely transforms the impact of your declarations. Your words are no longer attempts to change reality. They're acknowledgments of what is already true in consciousness. Behind the scenes of this approach is a profound understanding of energetic alignment. Just as a tuning fork will cause another tuning fork of the same frequency to vibrate when placed nearby, your words of fulfillment activate corresponding realities in the physical dimension. This isn't magical thinking, but rather a sophisticated engagement with vibrational resonance, a principle that quantum physics continues to validate through observations of entangled particles. If you've experienced moments where your words seem to carry unusual power because they came from a place of certainty rather than need, type fulfilled speech in the comments below. One of Florence Scovel Shinn's most profound teachings involved developing what she called sensory vividness in your manifestation practice. She advised her students to systematically refuse the evidence of their physical senses until their inner assumption of wealth felt absolutely real to them, as tangible and vivid as the chair they were sitting on or the table before them. This wasn't about surface-level visualization, but about cultivating such dimensional richness in your imaginal experience that the boundary between inner and outer reality temporarily dissolves. This approach to manifestation represents a complete paradigm shift. Rather than treating imagination as a pale shadow of physical reality, Scovel Shinn understood that imagination is actually the causal realm from which physical experience emerges. When your inner experience of wealth reaches the threshold of sensory vividness, where you can feel the texture of abundance, hear the conversations that would accompany it, see the environments it would create, you establish a blueprint that your subconscious mind accepts as instruction for creation. The journey toward this vivid assumption involves more than mental pictures. It requires engaging all your inner senses to create a fully immersive experience of already having what you desire. You don't just see yourself in the house of your dreams. You feel the doorknob in your hand, smell the fresh flowers in the entryway, hear your footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. This multi-sensory engagement creates an impression so profound that your subconscious begins accepting it as current reality rather than future possibility. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when you genuinely occupy the end state of manifestation. When you truly live from the end result, not as an intellectual concept, but as felt experience, a remarkable transformation occurs in your relationship with creation. All struggle vanishes, all begging disappears, all hoping evaporates. Even the subtle anxiety of waiting for someday dissolves completely. This inner knowing creates a unique psychological freedom that few ever experience. From this vantage point, you no longer need to wonder when your desire will manifest, because in your consciousness, it already has. This completion isn't pretended or affirmed, it's genuinely felt at a cellular level. The gap between wanting and having collapses entirely, creating a state of peaceful certainty that radiates through your entire being. Consider the profound relaxation that occurs when you release the burden of striving. Most people approach manifestation as a form of spiritual achievement, something to work toward, something to earn through perfect technique or unwavering belief. But the end-state consciousness is one of profound surrender rather than effort. In this awareness, everything is already accomplished. Your only task is to align with what has already been created in the realm of pure possibility. The revelation that transforms prosperity consciousness is recognizing that this end state isn't something you gradually approach through years of practice. It's available as an immediate shift in perception, a decision to step directly into the consciousness of completion rather than working toward it incrementally. This decision point represents the threshold between conventional manifestation practice and genuine spiritual mastery. If you've experienced moments where you felt absolute inner knowing that something was already yours before any physical evidence appeared, type inner knowing in the comments below. A profound shift occurs when you genuinely feel that money is already yours. At the deepest level of your being, your words suddenly gain extraordinary creative weight in the universe. It's as though they become infused with a magnetic charge that begins rearranging physical circumstances to match your internal reality. Florence Scovel Shinn observed this phenomenon repeatedly with her students. The moment they crossed the threshold from wanting wealth to feeling it as present, their declarations shifted from wishful thinking to creative commands. This transformation in your speech isn't something you can fake or force. It emerges organically when you've genuinely stepped into the feeling state of abundance. When wealth feels as natural to you as breathing, your casual remarks about money carry the vibration of completion rather than seeking. This energetic signature is what causes the external world to begin reorganizing itself around your new identity. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. Consider what happens when your words carry this vibration of completion. Opportunities that were previously invisible suddenly appear in your awareness. People who can facilitate your prosperity are mysteriously drawn into your experience. Resources align in ways that defy logical explanation. This isn't coincidence or luck. It's the natural response of a universe that mirrors back to you the dominant frequency you're broadcasting through your words and feelings. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what may be Florence Scovel Shinn's most foundational teaching, the universe as mirror. She recognized that the external world isn't creating your experience. It's reflecting it with perfect precision. Your financial circumstances aren't random or arbitrary. They're the faithful echo of your inner conversations about money. Whatever you consistently tell yourself about prosperity becomes your lived reality through an unfailing law of consciousness. This revelation completely inverts conventional thinking about causality. Most people believe external circumstances create their inner state. I'm worried because my bills are high, or I feel prosperous because I received this bonus. Scovel Shinn understood the actual sequence. Your inner conversations create the energetic template that manifests as your physical circumstances. The outer is always a reflection of the inner, never the reverse. The watershed moment in prosperity consciousness comes when you fully grasp that your financial reality isn't happening to you, it's happening from you. Those private conversations you have with yourself about money while driving, showering, or lying awake at night aren't just reactions to your circumstances. They're the architectural blueprints creating those very circumstances. This understanding represents the decisive fork in the road between victim consciousness and creator consciousness. Behind the scenes of this principle is a profound understanding of the holographic nature of reality. The part contains the whole, the inner contains the outer. Your consciousness isn't just observing the world, it's projecting it. When you genuinely recognize that your inner dialogue about money is being broadcast into the quantum field and returned to you as experience, you reclaim your position as the author of your financial story. The journey toward prosperity mastery involves becoming intensely aware of these internal conversations, not to judge or criticize them, but to consciously redirect them toward what you wish to experience. This isn't about forcing positive thinking, but about authentic resonance with abundance. If you've ever noticed how your financial circumstances seem to mirror the conversations you've been having with yourself about money, type mirror effect in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something profound through her work with thousands of clients. The stories you tell yourself about money are not simply reflections of your financial reality. They are its architects. These inner conversations, the private narrative you maintain about prosperity, wealth, and your relationship with money, form the energetic blueprint that eventually materializes as your financial circumstances. Whether your internal dialogue revolves around themes of lack and fear or abundance and confidence, these patterns inevitably become the framework upon which your external reality is constructed. Consider for a moment what happens when you consistently tell yourself that money is hard to come by, or I never seem to have enough. These aren't just passive observations, they're active instructions to your subconscious mind. The energetic signature of these statements begins reshaping your perceptions, influencing your decisions, and ultimately manifesting as corresponding financial experiences. Conversely, when your inner dialogue naturally flows with themes of abundance, possibility, and financial ease, you begin attracting circumstances that validate these conversations. This revelation completely transforms our understanding of financial transformation. Rather than focusing primarily on external strategies like budgeting, investing, or income generation, Scovel Shinn recognized that the most powerful point of intervention is at the level of these inner conversations. When you deliberately redirect your private money dialogue, you initiate a cascade of changes that eventually restructure your entire financial reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring why the effectiveness of any powerful wealth sentence depends entirely on the inner state from which you speak it. This is perhaps the most critical distinction in manifestation practice, and the reason why identical affirmations produce dramatically different results for different people. When a prosperity statement is spoken from a state of lack, doubt, or desperation, it quickly fades without impact, like a seed planted on barren soil. But when the same statement emerges from genuine abundance consciousness, it blooms with extraordinary creative power. The watershed moment in manifestation work occurs when you recognize that it's not about finding the perfect phrase or magical sentence. It's about cultivating the authentic inner state from which that sentence is spoken. This explains why seemingly simple declarations can trigger financial breakthroughs for some people, while elaborate prosperity scripts fail for others. The difference isn't in the words themselves, but in the consciousness they're carrying. Consider this profound analogy. A wealth affirmation spoken from lack is like trying to broadcast a radio signal without power. No matter how perfect the message, it simply doesn't transmit. The same affirmation spoken from genuine abundance consciousness is like a signal amplified by a powerful transmitter. It reaches across vast distances and manifests with remarkable speed. This understanding revolutionizes how we approach prosperity work, shifting our focus from finding perfect words to cultivating the optimal state of being. Behind the scenes of this principle is a sophisticated understanding of vibrational resonance. Your inner state creates a specific frequency that either harmonizes with or contradicts your spoken words. When harmony exists between state and speech, manifestation becomes almost effortless. If you've noticed how the exact same prosperity statement feels, completely different depending on your inner state when you speak it, type inner harmony in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something extraordinary through her decades of working with clients. Your true relationship with wealth isn't revealed by what you say publicly or the affirmations you repeat consciously. Rather, it's exposed through those quiet, subtle thoughts that flicker through your mind when no one else is listening. These whispered beliefs, the internal commentary that runs beneath your conscious awareness, form the authentic foundation of your financial reality. They're like the underwater portion of an iceberg, largely invisible but comprising the vast majority of your wealth consciousness. The revelation that transforms prosperity practice is learning to monitor these subtle thoughts with compassionate awareness. When you're alone reviewing your bank statement, what's the immediate internal dialogue? When you see someone driving an expensive car, what's your instinctive internal response? When an unexpected bill arrives, what's the first thought that crosses your mind? These instant, reflexive thoughts aren't random. They're precise indicators of your true wealth consciousness, regardless of what affirmations you may be deliberately practicing. This inner surveillance becomes a profound journey of self-discovery. Most people are shocked to realize how consistently negative their automatic thoughts about money actually are. Years of cultural conditioning, family patterns, and personal experiences have created a default setting that often contradicts their conscious desires. Recognizing these patterns without judgment becomes the first step toward genuine transformation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the decisive threshold that separates those who manifest prosperity from those who remain trapped in limitation. Florence Scovel Shinn identified a clear dividing line. You must completely stop speaking as someone who lacks resources and begin speaking consistently as someone who already possesses abundance. This isn't a gradual transition or a partial shift. It's a complete and decisive reinvention of your financial identity through deliberate speech. Consider the watershed moment when you make this decision. You're no longer allowing yourself to speak from scarcity, even in casual conversation. You're no longer permitting phrases like, "I can't afford it. That's too expensive for me," or "I'll need to save up for that." Instead, you consciously choose language that reflects abundance consciousness. I'm choosing to direct my resources elsewhere. That's not my priority right now. Or, I appreciate that, and I'm focusing my prosperity on other experiences. The journey of mindset mastery involves this meticulous attention to speech patterns. Every declaration that emerges from lack consciousness reinforces that very state, while every statement that emerges from abundance creates more of the same. This explains why seemingly small shifts in vocabulary can trigger dramatic changes in manifestation. Your words aren't just describing your reality, they're programming the energetic field from which your experiences emerge. Behind the scenes of successful manifestation is this deliberate choice point, the decision to speak exclusively from the identity of someone who already possesses what they desire. This isn't about denial or false pretense, it's about consciously choosing which aspect of yourself you're energizing through speech. If you've ever caught yourself in the act of speaking from lack and consciously redirected your words to reflect abundance instead, type "speech shift" in the comments below. Florence Scovel Shinn offered one of her most illuminating metaphors when she compared the subconscious mind to fertile soil. This analogy brilliantly captures the impartial nature of manifestation. Just as soil doesn't discriminate between the seeds planted within it, whether they're weeds or flowers, poisonous plants or nourishing crops, your subconscious mind faithfully grows whatever thought seeds you consistently plant through your dominant speech patterns and emotional states. This revelation completely transforms how we approach prosperity work. The soil of your mind doesn't judge the quality of what you're planting. It simply creates the conditions for germination, growth, and eventual harvest. When you habitually speak of financial struggle, those seeds are accepted just as readily as seeds of abundance would be. Your subconscious doesn't evaluate whether these thought patterns serve your highest good. It simply creates the ideal growing conditions for whatever you've planted. Consider the profound implications of this principle. Many people inadvertently sabotage their financial breakthroughs by focusing intensely on what they don't want, consistently planting seeds of worry, lack, and limitation through both conscious and unconscious speech patterns. The subconscious, functioning with perfect faithfulness, creates the precise conditions for these seeds to flourish. The harvest isn't random or arbitrary. It's the natural outcome of what's been